Hello, welcome to another tutorial video. What we're going to be looking at now is question 5, should I say, from section B, and what we're going to be looking at is the indicative content box. So basically this is in the mark scheme sent to the examiner. When they are looking at your answer, they look down here to see if this is the kind of thing that you've put in. You don't have to have put anything from here in, but it's just giving them an idea of what they might expect. But most examiners also use a great amount of common sense to actually see if your essay makes sense in and of itself in relation to the question. This is just kind of a little pointer along, just in case the examiner wants to clarify something. So we can't actually use all of this because it's specific to the exam that's asked. So for example, this one must have had something to do with the decisions, etc., that a person was making, and this one must have had something to do with, a journey or a travel experience. So they're obviously going to have different content in them because obviously they're different areas. The things that are actually universal in both basically you have to show that you've understood. As you can see there, show you've understood. You have to show you've understood. You have to be able to link it into more than just what happened. So you have to go a little deeper and develop it. So here you've got develop reasons and explanations, and you've also got move beyond anecdote. And here it's actually you've got develop reasons again. So you have to justify what you're saying and furthermore explain why. So again, going deeper and make some emphasis. So again, go deeper. So both of those, that's all the skill we can really look at for that. We have to show that we've understood the question and the context in which we're asked to write. We have to actually be able to make our point and then develop them in a couple of ways, and then finally we have to be able to conclude the writing. So those are the three main things that we've got to do. Now that we naturally do anyway. It's very rare that I actually see people who are aiming for an A look, and just kind of mention something simple and think it's going to be enough. It's not going to. And very rarely do I see students trying to get an A and not show that they've understood or conclude their writing. These are kind of bread and butter. They come naturally with the writing that you're going to do. What might be more important or more useful to us then is to actually try and have a base understanding of what we have to do. So with any question that we get, we have to say what we're doing. So an example for if we get a mock question up here, sometimes you have to make difficult decisions, explain, describe a decision that you or someone you know had to make and explain the consequences. So we have to say what that decision was and what the consequences were. We have to say why they made that decision and how the consequences came about, how the results came about, and we have to give details. Now that's where we're going to get a lot of the marks, because the what's and the why part there are basically our, if you will, frame of the house, the actual edifice around which the rest of the house is built. That's what the main things. We can't go on for ages. We can't go on for a whole 2 pages just about the single fact of what, because once we say what it is, so the issue is going to be, the day I moved out, or etc. So you can't say the day I moved out and then it kind of extend upon the what again and again and again. You're going to go into the why and the how and the details of that. So what we're looking at then is isolating what the question is asking us to do, and then we have to justify and discuss the elements and ingredients. So there could be 5 or 6 reasons, so then we have to start talking about the reasons, and it's best to give a range. So some that were actually positive, some that were negative, and obviously with this we're looking at the isolating not only the decision but also the consequences, and then we have to go into details. I've put the details in bold because that's the main thing. That's where we've got to actually make it a really vivid description. We've got to actually write it in a very descriptive way. We've got to actually make it, powerful and important. So the what can I say? The scenario version of this question, to describe a scene where you're, etc., etc., etc. That's not going to be, or from the last couple of pages, it doesn't seem like that's going to be on there anymore, because that was more like story writing. Here we're actually looking to actually describe in a more personal account, and that's why you're not being asked to create put a creative piece. You're actually being asked to put it in a formal writing that's going to be read like as complete non-fiction. You can make things up, but they have to be believable. So let's take an example then, here's a question. Write a brief article for a website of your choice telling your readers about an interesting or unusual journey or travel experience you've had, and explain why it was memorable. So if we take this what, why, how, and then details approach, so first of all, we're thinking, okay, so what was it? Well, I went to the Sahara. Okay, that was the first time I went to the Sahara. And why and how? Okay, so on top of that, it was the first time I was abroad. That was why. My father was ill at the time, and my best friend came with me, etc. They're just a couple of the ideas of the things that you can actually put in developing that. And then we have to have the details. So the details here, so all the things we're going to pick up on, maybe the stories that, the adventures we had, the people that we met, the sensory descriptors of things we saw, touch, how we felt, etc. Literary techniques, just describing those, making the image become really strong, and obviously the memories. And what I've put there by memories is it's quite good in descriptive writing, or it's quite a common feature in descriptive writing and quality descriptive writing, to kind of be in your head and then be out of your head. So what I mean by that is, you show your thought processes and then what you see, and then your thought process and then what you see. So for example, in this one, let's just say while you're on your travel experience in the Sahara, you couldn't see any you were really thirsty, you couldn't see any way out of the desert for a while, and then you were stuck there stranded for some reason. And so then we go into an internal monologue of a few lines about how worried you are, who you're going to miss, and how you're going to feel, and thinking about other travelers that have ended this fate, and thinking whether you joined them, wondering how you're going to be rescued, and then kind of like putting all the kind of descriptive fears and ideas of what you're actually coming through with that. And then move off into the car came over the verge, and I saw it, and it's it's huge rugged wheels eating up the sand, and it just kind of came like an angel out of the blah blah blah, whatever. It just basically, part of that was inside the character's head and then outside of it. So you can describe it that way, and that's just one of obviously countless examples. But the most important thing is to be able to discuss the details, whether it's inside your head or outside your head. And then obviously you're going to refer to these ideas again and again and again, and then you have to end well. So ending strong is completely dependent on how you started, but you want to kind of leave something that makes the reader feel quite satisfied. It's not one of those that just kind of, so if we had this example, and then I got the plane home and I had a great time, that's too short. So basically, and then on the plane home I considered, and then you'd go into the wider implications there, of how lucky I'd been, of all the things I'd done. I flicked through my phone and saw the pictures, and I couldn't wait to show so and so and so and so and so, and I only wish XXXXX, and then you can end on that. It's just a lot more satisfying. So make sure that you do end strong. The key preparation I would actually recommend you do from this is just read loads of different kinds of articles, that are just kind of describing things. It might be describing how a new piece of technology works. It might be describing a trip that someone's been on. It might be describing even just how to make a cake recipe. It might be describing someone suing someone else. Especially read them online, because with the online ones they have to get to the point a little bit quicker, so you might be able to notice the descriptive skills a little bit quicker as well. And yeah, there's a video if you want to look at the other thing I've done this in more detail, especially with the descriptive writing. I've already done it in great depth in this, and what the video I did for the last one, it's called Paper 1 Section B, Inform, Explain, Describe. If you put that into the search engine on the channel page, then that will come up, and that's a really useful video on going into describing well and in detail. And hopefully that'll be enough for section 5. I'll do section 6 and then look at some exemplar material.